we have with us a guest that has been on this show before. As I said earlier, she's not a stranger to the house. She's been a one-time guest on the show, in person of Vivian Nwakah, the CEO of the wonderful brand known as MEDSAF. Now, Vivian was very active during the heat of the pandemic that we're talking about and we're all experiencing right now. So one of the main reasons why we decided to bring Vivian back on the show is for Vivian to share with us some of the things she experienced during the intense period of the lockdown and some of the innovative approach she has employed to transform the way she does business, especially going forward. So Vivian, once more, you're very welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's all good. Here in my, I've been in my apartment now for weeks without
I
leaving
can,
that
I
often,
can
so
imagine. I
just
can
by
imagine.
myself.
Okay, Vivian. Let's get right into it. I know you, but for most of our viewers joining this live session, not many of them might know who Vivian is or what MedStep does. So, in very quick succession, tell us who Vivian is and what does MedStep as a brand represent here in Nigeria.
Yeah, so my name is Vivian Nwakah. I founded MEDSAF in 2017. And MEDSAF is a one-stop shop for healthcare stakeholders to purchase, manage, and track medications. So healthcare stakeholders can be hospitals, pharmacies, but also governments, NGOs, corporations as well fall into that category. So it's just all about, how to make sure that the average person, you and I, can go to a hospital or pharmacy and actually get real medication when we are treated. In Nigeria specifically, 30 to 40% of all medications sold are fake or substandard. And, you and I might not necessarily know the impact of taking a medication that's supposed to treat a symptom and it
Yeah.
doesn't in the efficacy that it should. Those are long-term effects on your life, not necessarily immediate. Though some cases they can be immediate. So it's all we started MEDSAF to, really just rally around this idea that Africans deserve quality medication and that that's a fundamental human right. And we would use technology to make sure that that's a possibility for all people.
Great, Vivian. Now, Vivian, there's no doubt that during the heat of the pandemic, one sector of the economy globally that experienced intense pressure to deliver, to perform, regardless of what we're experiencing, was the medical sector, of which you fall into. How did you? How First of all, how did the advent of the COVID-19? How did it hit you? How did it hit you? How did it affect your business, your way of doing business?
Well, it didn't affect our way of doing business because, since 2017, we've always said, we're going to use technology to make it easier, to lower the bar for hospitals and pharmacies to be able to purchase directly from us, and to create that transparency around where medications, but also medical products. So we've always sold PPE, right? So masks, gloves, consumables like syringes, etc. So it wasn't about expanding into any type of new lines of business. It was just about how can we support our hospitals and pharmacies. Very beginning, that the biggest impact would be that people would not want to go to the hospital, even if they were very sick, just to avoid COVID-19. So we already knew that there was going to be a decline in demand from a hospital's perspective of the different types of products they might need. But on the other hand, there's now an increase in the amount of hospitals and pharmacy decision makers that are actually willing to purchase a medication online. So you had a disruption of the supply chain where, someone might be used to going to, the open drug market to purchase a medication. Now, they're willing to, purchase online from a brand that they trust. So all of the work that we put into creating the brand of MEDSAF paid off throughout the lockdown in the perspective that now people know that we're a trusted source of these types of products and that they can use us online without having to worry as much as they might have worried in the past. So it's kind of like it was a balancing act of expansion, but also retraction of the market itself.
Great. Now, Vivian, we're still going to take some more questions, but I want to just quickly do a reiteration to our viewers that, as I said earlier at the beginning, you can throw in your questions. I've been seeing some questions coming. You can throw in your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them as much as possible. And also remember too that Nigeria.com on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for all your questions. And even for some of those questions we might not be able to answer today, we'll do well to throw out a special editorial on today's episode of Get the Boss, where all your questions from Vivian will be answered correctly. So please continue to throw your questions in. When we get to a particular point in the program, Vivian will try to answer as many of the questions as possible. Now, Vivian, tell me what has changed? I mean, with the advent of COVID-19, would you now say is the new norm for MedSaf? I want to believe some things, no matter how small, might have changed. I mean, going forward, what is now the new norm at MedSaf that you say is the
Yeah.
new innovation that's going forward with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see a question about flexible hours and working from home, and so that's absolutely part of the new norm of MEDSAF. I was well aware. Our office is in Ikoyi here in Lagos. And I was well aware that some of our teammates had to travel 2 hours every morning to get to the
Yeah.
office and then travel another 2 hours to get back. But since we've been work from home for a good majority of our teammates, I've seen a much larger increase in productivity because, you can literally roll out of bed and make your 8 or 9 o'clock meeting on Zoom. Whereas
Yeah.
before it would have been, 2 hours, 3 hours of preparation before you could
Very
be
true.
available for that meeting, right? And I think that,
True.
mega cities like Lagos specifically, um, you know, there's a real problem there from a logistics perspective. I think it's a game changer for companies who are really open to taking advantage of it. It really is a game changer because the name of the game is getting productivity out of your team members, and it's not about suffering in traffic for 3 hours. That doesn't help anybody.
There was a question from someone. I didn't get the name very well. Ideas Man 7. I guess he just joined in, and his question was, why was MedSaf set up? So I know you did
Yeah,
mention that at the beginning of this interview. So just as a form of a recap, let the viewers know why MedSaf was set up. What was the idea behind it?
yeah. So I started the company because a friend of mine died from a fake malaria medication, and that opened my eyes to this idea that there are fake medications in the system. And so I wanted to understand why. I'm a very curious person. And so that, traumatic event just kind of led me down this long road of just trying to figure out, well, why is it possible that you can go to a hospital or pharmacy and get a medication that's not real? How does that actually even happen? And that's not fair, right? So, MEDSAF kind of came from this idea that we all deserve, a good, life and access to quality medication, and what can be done to make sure that that happens. And so that's where MEDSAF came from.
I said, how would you say your experience has been so far as a brand in Nigeria?
It's a it's a roller coaster ride. Like, starting a business in Nigeria is not a joke, right? It's a
Tell me
serious
about it.
endeavor. So it's been it's been life changing. I don't think there's anything that I will do in my life that will be as exciting as building MEDSAF. It's hard. I've grown a lot. I wouldn't say I'm a completely different person, but I'm definitely way more street smart, way more, resilient, tougher than I've ever been in my life. And those are all, as a result of building this company. So it's, it's one for when I retire, I'll write a book about this chapter, and it'll be interesting.
I have one very interesting question from one A underscore Ray underscore Dawn. I guess it's a he, and his question is, would you encourage more business to adopt flexible hours and option of working from home, especially with the experience of this pandemic? What's your take on that? You talked about it briefly,
Yeah,
but is this something you would encourage if given the mantle to give an idea? Is this something you would encourage businesses to do going forward?
Yeah, I think like the whole model of work needs to be disrupted. It's as I talk, especially in the context of a mega city like Lagos, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
sustainable for a human being to sit in traffic for 3 hours in a city that doesn't even have a subway, adequate bus system. That's just inhumane. It's not right. So, but if it means like you making money and actually being able to feed your family, people do it, right? But
yeah,
I think that this COVID-19 has just kind of like opened up a new way to think about how, you can work and not necessarily have to go through the trauma of getting to your work if it's far from you.
what has been your take home, maybe from all the experience? What is one thing that struck you from all what was happening?
Yeah, I think the whole world was going at 1,000 miles per hour. 19 pandemic has look at the United States is literally burning right this moment in time, right? Something that a place where Nigerians would kill themselves to get to is literally on fire. And that's because COVID-19 has pretty much just shown a bright light on the cracks in the foundation. Same thing in Nigeria, same thing in Europe. Every single country, for the most part, is experiencing a spotlight on the foundations of their country. Are people
Yeah,
being treated? Are the fundamental rights of human beings being taken into consideration? And so this is a moment in time for us as individuals to realize that we can band together and start demanding, the types of countries and types of futures that we want ourselves, but also our kids, to grow up in. And so I see
yeah,
this as a moment of time where the entire world collectively slowed down at the very exact moment. And there are some of us that will rise to the challenge of taking advantage of that and creating a new order, a new world that we want to live in. And it's perfectly possible. It's possible here in Nigeria. It's possible all over the world. And so it's possible within your company, right? If you're a business owner, it's possible in your family, just everything that you do. So that's the biggest takeaway from this experience in COVID-19 and running the business at the same time.
Fantastic. Well said. Now, Vivian, we're fast coming to the home stretch for today's special edition of the program, Meet the Boss. But I still have one or two more questions to throw in. Someone was like, what would you advise those employers who before now usually frown at staff working from home? Yes, that's a very good question because before now, this idea of having
Um,
staff work from home and getting jobs done, many employers usually didn't like the idea or what have you. What would be your direct advice to employers of labor about working from home? WFH.
um, so I think that there's this like perception that there's no talent, the talent is lacking in Nigeria, and you've got to sit on people in order to get them to do work, right? And you've got to have them, you've got to be able to see them in the office in order to know that they're working. But
Yeah.
I've been everywhere. I've traveled around the world and I've seen Nigerians in high positions just executing. Um, whether and not even just high positions. I've just seen hardworking people who happen to be Nigerian everywhere around the world. So I think that we've got a great talent, a pool of talent, and I think that it's very hard for employers to create the infrastructure to allow people to shine, as well as allow to give over a sense of control so that people with checks and balances in place so that people can be able to take initiative, think outside of the box, and grow their business. And I don't know, like I think some of it has to do with like military regime. I really think that Nigerians need to start to sit down and think about, like, Nigerians born and raised in Nigeria need to sit down and think about what was the actual mental impact of military regime and the English, the UK, that era. What was the actual mental impact of that? Because I think there's a lot of healing that needs to go on. But from a work perspective, I think it's just about how can I put the infrastructure in place to encourage people to take initiative and grow the business with me. And that's a mindset that doesn't seem to exist here. Whereas in other places I've been, that's way more, that's normal. So is not the core competency of Nigerians in general. So if you look at Germany and you think about how, the German machine and just how, it's kind of embedded in their day to day of how they operate, how operations is so important in their society.
Good. Now, Vivian, on the final note, what would be your words of advice and encouragement to both Nigerian brands, especially those ones who are finding it difficult at this point in time, and the Nigerian society as a whole? Words of encouragement.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, if we focus on COVID, then we're not going to focus on like what's sustainable, because the reality is I went out to the grocery store today. People have moved on. from COVID
Yeah.
19. Like, regardless of
Mm.
whether we're dying or not, we don't even know if we're dying. Like, people have just like mentally moved on. In 6 months from now, nobody will even talk about COVID 19. That's a very real possibility, considering what I'm seeing on the streets. And so I think it's more of, how are you taking this moment in time, like I said earlier, that's, just kind of like this stop in time, that's shedding this really strong light on a lot of the cracks in the foundation. How are you using this
Yeah.
time to make yourself faster, smarter, more efficient, more effective as an individual, as a company, as a community, as a country, etc.? And so it's those that are going to take advantage of this opportunity that will come out of it 1,000 times stronger to lead the way for the rest. And that's just what this is. This was a gift to Africa, if you think about it. The US, which is the global power, is literally cut to their knees. Europe is shuttered. China is weak. This was a moment in time for Africa to rise. Whether or not we're doing that or not is remains to be seen. But it's an opportunity, and there was nobody better suited for this opportunity than Africans. Young populations of very smart people who know how to use the internet, have access to computers, and speak English. So we'll see what ends up happening. But my advice is, in your own personal story, how are you seizing this moment in time to improve yourself, do the hard work, think outside of the box, forget who
Yeah.
cares what your friends say, who cares what your family says, who cares what society says? How are you just leaning into who you are as an individual and following your journey, your path, and being true to what you can and cannot do? That would just be my advice is, are you focusing on that?
Fantastic. Vivian, it's always a pleasure discussing with you. You keep doling out this wealth of experience that you acquire as you grow in life and with you. Um, More questions are coming. I mean, someone just said, don't go yet, but we can't stay here all day. I remember, as I said at the beginning, I did mention that all the questions that are coming in are going to be noted down, and even after today's special edition of the program, we'll be doing an editorial follow-up, and where all the questions that were asked, the answers will be given. And remember, you can also follow Vivian. Vivian, can you tell them your social handles, both yours personal and your company, so that many who want to contact you
Yeah.
can do that? Please go ahead.
So we're at MEDSAF.com on Twitter, MEDSAF.com on Instagram. I'm sorry, I was having internet issues, so I couldn't get onto my company's Instagram. So this is like my personal one. But MEDSAF.com is our name on Facebook, on Twitter. Someone says I want to say more. I could talk for all day. That's true. MEDSAF.com is our name, so you can find us. It's MEDSAF, like Meds Africa, Meds Safe, MEDSAF, and you can find us on all the YouTube, all that stuff, under MEDSAF.
Great, great. Well, I think, one of the individuals has been very persistent. And one question that struck me from the list of questions he sent in was, when you were about to start MedSaf, when you were
What?
about to start MedSaf, what? I think I'm going to let you speak a little more because I'm getting bombarded that needs to talk. Please let us speak. Wow. So,
Um,
what inventory check did you do before you
I'm all
started
about
MedSaf?
I'm all about the
How
people
many
for
times did you
real.
need to come to Nigeria to do some inventory checks?
Yeah, so I think like I spent a lot of time traveling and just kind of putting
Yeah.
myself in other people's positions. And one of the biggest lessons I learned from my travels is that I would see people who were outsiders. Um,
Okay.
and they would go into these countries and they would just make something amazing out of nothing because
Yeah.
of their difference in perspective. And so when I came to Nigeria about 7 years ago, I felt the same way. I felt that a lot of the people in Nigeria were complaining about everything. And look, this is traumatic stuff. Like everything that an average Nigerian person has to deal with on a daily basis is actually like trauma. It's almost like abuse, right? And I think like part of that like coping mechanism that we're all amazing, that we all have these amazing coping mechanisms, but part of it
Yeah.
is everybody complains about just what's the problem and we just move on with our lives because there's a sense of feeling powerless, but there's a sense of like you can't really control what's going on. But the reality is that if you if you come into an environment with just an open mind to learn about what the actual issues are so that you can kind of create solutions, that you can find opportunity there. And so me coming in, I had never been to Nigeria before 7 years ago when I landed here. So me coming
Okay.
in, I saw these opportunities in places where people told me there's no opportunity. And so for you, if you're thinking about ways that you can kind of create something, be better, level up, get to the next level, I would challenge you to just kind of have a little bit of creativity and say, what if I could fix this thing? What would I need to know in order to be able to ask to get to the bottom of it? So for example, when my friend died from fake medications, I just kept asking why, why? And so it was the questions of why over and over and over and over and over again to manufacturers, to hospitals, pharmacies, people, other stakeholders that got me to MEDSAF.